All
Good
right, stop what you're
morning.
doing because I'm about to ruin the sounds and the styles that you're used to. Hello.
I think that's not correct. Do you get the words right when you use song lyrics, or
Isn't
is
that
that
right? All right,
optional?
stop what you're doing because I'm about to ruin the
I thought it was
styles.
isn't the image in the style or something? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
Can we get
But now
someone on that? This is important.
This is
Breaking
important.
news.
All right, stop what you're doing because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you're used to.
Welcome to the Backpack Show, everybody, where we get to the hard-hitting and important questions of business success and how to recreate it for yourself.
You know, you got to understand, if you don't understand your digital underground, you are not going to go far in this business environment whatsoever. We have a show today. This show came up just together. What happened?
We got crazy lucky. So I've been working for a few weeks on getting Dan Sturges on. He is a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, you want to put it, and also an actor. You might have seen him on Law and Order. He used to lift weights. So there's just a lot of fun, interesting things about him. And I wanted to talk with him about what got him into ghost hunting and paranormal investigation and how he stands out from the crowd of people who call themselves ghost hunters, but, you know, really just go on tours and like film some stuff for YouTube. So, because there is a difference, it is significant. And Derek Lumpkins was recommended to us by Deanna. So we're going to talk with him about community engagement, how to create it, the work he's doing as a consultant, and how he struck out on his own to build his own business.
And Derek's a Boston guy. So, you know, we've seen him around there and also a community guy forever.
Hi,
and,
Chip.
you know, the opportunity to talk community is always jamming. So as
Speaking
excited
of community,
hey, it's my father, Stephen Brogan. Hello.
And Debbie.
Debbie's here. It's a good game.
Oh, Ghost today. She's like excited about Ghosts. Me too.
Well,
so fun fact, I watched the 1939 version of Wuthering Heights when I was a child because there was a ghost in the beginning and I was like fascinated by it. So I watched.
Backpack Show.
And she had to watch it too.
There's a ghost in Wuthering Heights.
No. Well, I know. Spoiler alert. 1939 spoiler. Sorry, it's tough. I ruined it for you.
I bet you're going to tell me about Christmas Carol next.
Don't get me started on Titanic.
Oh my gosh.
You don't want to know how it ends.
My favorite is that, you know, they made that song out of Grover from Sesame Street. Near, far. Okay.
That's not how that happened. Celine Dion did not watch Sesame Street to write the song.
So we're going to talk about ghosts in community today, not at the same necessary time.
I was like, community or communing?
I think, well, Derek can talk about the fact that if you don't do community well, you're going to make it a ghost town.
Oh,
and we're going to talk about the future. And
Dan
can talk about how ghosts don't hang out together, it turns out. Why is there only ever one ghost in a ghost house? That's what I want to know.
I don't think that's true. Let's get Dan on and find out.
Let's get Dan. We'll ask him that question. There's never like ghost parties, are there?
Well, there's plenty of ghost parties.
Okay.
Sure.
Like the Haunted Mansion where they have the ballroom.
Wear masks
exactly. Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Hey, guys.
Hey, Dan.
Hi. So first of all, are ghosts real?
You know, I hope so. If they're not, I've certainly been wasting a lot of my time for a long time. So I'm going to go with, yeah, they are real. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, we get reports. Reports have been happening for since the dawn of time, since people have been around. They've been reporting encounters with this sort of stuff. So yeah, they've got to be real.
We all seem to have one of those experiences anyway. We all, you know, whether or not we think we believe, and especially if we maybe really intensely don't believe, there's been that moment where we've really felt like, this feels like it. But you went further. You said, I think I'll make a show out of this. And there's other ghost shows, but it's not necessarily everyone's next career move. What made you make that choice?
Well, you know, great question. It was something I was always into, even as a little kid. And, you know, when I got a little bit older into high school, I kind of put it on the back burner for a long time and it was into sports and girls. And then, you know, I moved to the city, went to school. I went to theater school. And right out of theater school, I got very lucky and did real well. And I'm also a Civil War buff. So it afforded me the opportunity to visit a lot of Civil War battlefields. And every Civil War battlefield has a haunted bed and breakfast. So I would stay there and get my sort of ghost fix. And I met a paranormal group in Gettysburg, and who were investigating the bed and breakfast I was staying at. And I'd been at the bar, I had a couple of drinks, I came back to go to bed, and met these guys, and they were really, really cool. They were doing really, really cool stuff. They were all very smart. We had a couple doctors, a dentist, and a chiropractor, and just smart people that you wouldn't expect would be doing this kind of stuff just from watching TV and the movies. And they were doing a legit investigation. So I was just fascinated. When I came back to New York City, I looked for some like-minded people and found a group and started doing some serious investigating here in New York City.
So what's a legit investigation? Like you're distinguishing that from what I know we see a lot of, casual enthusiasts doing. So what makes it legit?
And I'm not saying that, somebody going out for the thrill of experiencing a ghost is not a legit activity. But an investigation involves a little bit more than just going out for the excitement. It's you're collecting a lot of data that will support or look for corroborations in environmental factors and the type of people that are on the investigation. For instance, we check a lot of EMF. You'll hear a lot about electromagnetic fields if you watch the ghost shows. And there's a great theory that when a spirit is trying to manifest, or trying to make contact, the electromagnetic field in the room changes. And so people are trying to see if that's for real. It turns out, I think it is, but it's more about collecting data other than just going for the thrill of seeing a ghost.
That's what I saw as being a differentiator between yourself and a lot of the entertainment products out there, is that you're really trying to make this a real piece of work. Like you're explaining and asking questions that people don't normally do. It's not like, let's see if we can see something wobble. You're looking for the science that's going to make us understand it a little bit better. What made you pick that particular angle or that bent?
Well, I mean, that's sort of what I was fascinated in. And the ghost stuff is the sexy part of parapsychology. Parapsychology investigates ESP. It investigates mind-matter interaction or psychokinesis. And survivalism. Does consciousness survive bodily death? And which is the sexy part. That's the ghost part. That's the part that's everybody's sort of excited about. But in order to interact with a spirit, interact with consciousness that has survived bodily death, you have to be able to incorporate ESP research. And if stuff is moving around your house or your location, that's PK. That's mind matter interaction. That's the consciousness of somebody interacting with the physical world. And all of that is just really, really cool. And not that there's anything wrong with going out and just wanting to get a thrill of experiencing a ghost. But how does that work? And does consciousness survive bodily death? And if it can, how is it able to interact with us? And if a ghost doesn't have ears, if it doesn't have mass, how does it hear us when we're speaking? And if they don't have a tongue or a voice box, how do we hear them if they're not creating sound waves? So there's a lot that goes into having that one little experience, and to me, that's the fascinating part of this field.
You're kind of a Civil War buff, also, right? So did that play into your discovery of kind of like your interest in paranormal investigation? Did it spark your interest?
Yeah. Like I said, when I was in Gettysburg, I was at this place called the Farnsworth House, which is apparently the most haunted house in the most haunted town in America. And turns out I was staying in the most haunted room in the most haunted house.
Oh, you lucked out.
In the Sarah Black room.
Yeah.
The Sarah Black room, exactly. And I had come home from the night out, and there were these investigators, and they were dying to get into the Sarah Black room.
To your room.
Exactly. And with video cameras. And I was like, hey, what's up, guys? And
wow. I've had people make me that offer, but it was not the same. It's like, hey, can we come video in your room? I was like, no.
I had a couple of drinks in me too. I was up for anything. So I talked to these guys, and they were just great. They were great. And came back to the city, and off I went.
Wow. So then I'm wondering, though, how do you turn it into a business? So right now it's like a passion project for you. You're interested in it. You find some people who also think it's enjoyable, even though you spend a lot of time sitting around waiting for something to happen, right?
Sure.
You're not making things happen. You're just waiting, kind of. So
exactly.
How does that become a business? Like, how do you stand out from the crowd of people who say they're investigators but are not?
Well, I think it's tough to make it into a business. I've never charged for any investigations, and I don't charge for any consulting that I might do, because it would be like charging to go look for a unicorn. You know, I can't prove to you that, you know, I captured a ghost on an audio recording. I can't prove that, you know, if you don't want to believe. So I certainly wouldn't charge for that. I think what made me stand out, and other people like me stand out, is that I try and approach this with a real level head. I'm a big skeptic, and I get lots of stuff sent to me that, you know, I think is BS and is faked. And you know, I work on a television show on the Travel Channel called Paranormal Caught on Camera, and you know, there are some episodes I don't even get on because, you know, the video I watched I didn't agree with, or I was a little I thought it was a little dubious. So I'm a big skeptic, and I think that kind of made me stand out. And, you know, oddly enough, I think a theater background also helped me. And as far as when I'm speaking to somebody, I'm a little bit more gregarious, a little bit more outgoing than somebody might be. I'm not nervous in front of a camera, and I'm happy to, you know, it's hard to shut me up. So
it's a fun dichotomy though, because you look like a bouncer. You know, you look like the guy that's like, sir, I think you've had a few too many.
You look like you should be on Law and Order.
Well, that's you know, that's helped a few times, and on some investigations. Yeah, I'm a big guy, so yeah, I mean, that's come into play a couple times.
So what happened out at Lenox Hill? That's a story that I want to know about. There was a little townhouse out there somewhere. You shut off the recorders, and that's when everything went crazy. This is a story I read about
okay.
Early on.
We were investigating a giant townhouse up in the Upper East Side here, and it was actually owned by, and I've always been asked not to tell who, but a two-time Academy Award nominee actor who's passed away. But they were looking to sell that, and the real estate company, that was rumored that it was haunted, and the people that were interested in buying it were a little nervous about buying something that might be haunted. So they called us in to investigate this townhouse, and we were there all night. It was the night before Thanksgiving a few years back, and we were there all night long, and nothing was going on, and we were bored and tired, and we're like, all right, well, let's just wrap it up. Nothing's going on. So as we shut all the recorders and the cameras off, and we're rolling up our cables, the whole place just exploded, and we started hearing things. I'm listening to people talk in the basement, talking to me, you know, another investigator, and I'm upstairs, and I'm going, hey, I'm up here. Who are you talking to? He goes, dude, there's a guy down here I just had a conversation with, and I'm hearing whispering in my ears, and that never happens. And I'm hearing people whispering in my ear. I think somebody's behind me. There's nobody back there. So for about an hour, the place was just jumping, and then it simmered down. We all went our separate ways. And when we talked to the real estate people, they were like, so did anything happen? And I was like, oh my God, you're not going to believe what happened. This place, blah, blah, blah. And she said, did you catch anything on tape? And we said, no, we don't have anything. And then a couple of weeks later, we saw the sale went through in the paper. So they didn't have any qualms about telling the people, well, we don't have anything to show you. So over $10 million for this giant townhouse.
Michelle says, I guess it all comes down to interpretation of environmental vibration.
Yeah, you want me to address that?
Yeah.
Go.
Oh, sure. Hey, Michelle. Yeah, I mean, it absolutely comes down to interpretation, and the environmental stuff. We're not sure of the triggers that might happen. I think it more has to do with the person. But it definitely is your interpretation. I get a lot of audio clips sent to me, and I'll listen to it and I'll go, that sounds like somebody's stomach growling, or that sounds like serious, and or that sounds like squeaky brakes out on the street, or a siren. And but if somebody wants to believe that is a spirit trying to communicate with them, it's really hard to tell them that it isn't, or convince them that it isn't. So it all comes down to interpretation. That's what I mean. You've really got to approach this with a level head, and not believe everything that you can't explain is paranormal. You just can't explain it at the moment.
Well, I have a couple of MP3s that we can play, and then if you want to set them up for me.
Sure. Which one are we playing here?
Well, let's see. Which one's the best? Eliza, EVP1?
Oh, sure. Play that one.
Okay.
This is okay. This is we're on an investigation at the Merchants House Museum in New York City, which is it's an amazing place. And if you want to go to a real haunted house in New York City, go to the Merchants House Museum.
Really?
I've been investigating the museum for 13 years, and I had brought a friend of mine, Holly, with us, and I always love to bring a person that's never been on an investigation with me, and just a different energy. And there's a mirror and the lady of the house, Mrs. Treadwell's room, and Holly is asking if Mrs. Treadwell wouldn't mind if she uses the mirror. And at the you hear another investigator say, "Do you think Holly's pretty?" And you do hear an answer at the end of that. And I think I sent 2 files. I sent a raw file and then a file with the audio boosted up, so we're able to hear the response a little bit better.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this one says boost, so I think this is the right
yeah,
one.
that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, let's give this a try.
All right.
I'm not hearing anything, Kerry.
Yeah, I don't hear anything playing.
Oh, it's not playing. I put the let me stop and start over. I did it, but it didn't.
So
There
you
we go.
say.
I did. Okay. Let's try again.
Mrs. Treadwell, is it all right if I use your mirror
Now?
Yep. Can you hear it?
here?
You think Holly's a pretty girl?
You can be honest. It's okay.
Pleasant to know.
You hear that at the
That's
tail end?
certainly not.
Okay. Yeah, you can hear me boost up the audio. With headphones on, you can hear it real clear. It says pleasant enough, I believe.
Pleasant enough.
That's what I thought. Pleasant enough. Yeah.
I'm deaf. I've been in a lot of bands.
I mean, that's what we all go for. Let me figure out how many seconds in that was.
Pleasant to know.
Pleasant enough.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's what we all shoot for, right? To be pleasant
Yeah,
enough.
I mean, with that, I've been doing the Merchants House for a long time, and sometimes I really take it for granted, the stuff that we pull out of there. But, that's none of us heard that as it happened. I heard that about 2 weeks later when I was going over the recordings that we took, and we had 4 or 5 recorders going that night, and only showed up on 1 recorder. And it's a direct answer to a direct question, and out of nowhere. So. Yeah, it blows my mind. When I sit down and think about it sometimes, just when I'm sitting in my apartment here by myself, I go, how did that happen? How does that happen? And how come more people aren't talking about this stuff?
2 other really quick questions came in. One from Debbie Saviano. I don't know if we asked that one. I was looking at something at the same time, which is, ever been to Jefferson, Texas, the Excelsior Hotel? Spielberg stayed there, and it supposedly impacted his views.
I haven't been. No, I haven't. Unfortunately, had a lot of time to spend in Texas. But I'm sure there's so many places out there, that really change people's views. Like in this particular case, Steven Spielberg. When I bring a lot of my gym buddies to the Merchants House, and when they they go, "Come on, Dan, that's just bull crap, right?" And I'll go, "Okay, come on," and these big giant 300-pound power lifter guys, and we hear a door slam upstairs, and they'll go, Who's upstairs? And I go, I don't know. Go take a look. And they won't go up. And they go,
So, no, you first.
Yeah. You got these big 800 pounds of guys sneaking up the stairs together.
Chloe wants to know you probably all go to the bathroom together too, like in groups. Chloe wants to know, what's been your strangest or weirdest experience or discovery so far?
All right. When I'm going to say weird, I don't mean weird in a bad way. It'd be just unusual. Is when I'm dealing with a really good medium, a good psychic medium, and that's not weird in a scary way or in a negative way. It just blows my mind. I was not a believer in mediums and psychics. I live in New York City, and there's more psychos than psychics out there, and I've met them all. But I met 2 mediums after years of doing this and not believing in it, who just changed my mind. And One was, a little 8-year-old girl, and another who's become a close dear friend of mine, Richard Scholler, out on Long Island. And it's amazing what they're able to do, and the information that they're able to glean from somewhere. It really, really, it blew me away, and it changed my whole way of investigating. Now I make sure when I go on an investigation to bring one of these mediums that I'm comfortable with me, because it's a whole, I don't want to call them a tool, but it's a whole other way to investigate. And that's probably been my personal best discovery that I've come across in this is that that phenomena is for real.
You're like, hey, come with me on a Discovery Channel show. And they're like, okay.
Or make it
Well,
work.
I work with one gentleman who doesn't want to go on any of the shows, and he doesn't charge for his work. He likes to help people, and he's doing a pretty good, making a pretty good living at his real job, his quote unquote daytime job. So he just does this for the love of people, and so some of these people don't want any publicity, which is another reason why I want to work with them. They're for real.
I do feel like heroes deserve a salary.
Pardon me?
Heroes deserve a salary. I feel bad, like when people like their whole thing is saving people on TV or something or in a movie, and then it's like they're starving. Like, it's okay. Yeah. They shouldn't have to also work a day job. But sorry, Go ahead, Chris.
Dan Sturges, stick with us is what I was going to say. I'm going to put you backstage. Thank you so much for part of it. Appreciate it so much. We've got so much more to cover. And Derek Lumpkins is coming on. We're going to talk a lot about community. We're going to talk about his project with banking for the underbanked. We've got a lot to cover. I was thinking about when I first knew and caught wind of Derek. He was running a community project out of, I think it was Roxbury, and just so much stuff going on. And I want to hear all about that. So we swapped from ghosts to community. But
it was pleasant enough, though. That got me.
Pleasant enough was funny enough.
You're all right.
All right. Listen, we're sponsored by StreamYard. You can go to cbrogan.me/StreamYard. You can make your own show just like this one if you want. Boy, that would be swell.
Get your own ghost hunter.
Get your own ghost hunter. Hunter.
You need a speech therapist.
I know. Well, I was saying two words at the same time. We're sponsored by PubSite for authors. Maybe if Dan Sturges writes a book or Derek Lumpkins puts a book out there in the universe, you can make it onto a site like PubSite.
Super, super easy. It has all the pieces you need as an author to promote yourself, your appearances, your book. It's very easy to use and super customizable. So try it out. pub-site.com. There's a 14-day free trial. And after that, it's just $19.99 a month.
That's the deal. Listen, PubSite also sponsored by Person of the Day, powered by FSB Associates, who's been in business for 25 years helping authors be
book publicity firm.
I am so excited to talk to Derek Lumpkins. It's been a minute. He and I think, connected possibly through Bill Hughes, or I think we might have been at one of those same kind of WebInno events or something like that back when they were called WebInno. So it's been a minute since Derek and I have connected, but I'm really happy to bring him on, talk a little bit about community and especially his new banking project. So I'll just drag him out. Hey, Derek.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
So I'm the best I've ever been. You always stay busy. Everything's always kind of, moving for you. And like I said, we haven't connected in a minute. And next thing you know, I look around and you're trying to help the underbanked. You're doing some community projects, that sort of thing. Talk a little bit about what you're working on now, and then let's go backwards and talk about kind of where you came from.
Sure. So I work for Berkshire Bank, which is the sponsor for Revex Labs. And Revex Labs is the bank's community arm that is designed to help bank the underbanked and close the wealth gap. So, we know that there's a significant wealth gap here in this country. We know that a lot of people don't have a relationship with a bank. And so what Revex Labs does is it sites these physical brick and mortar spaces specifically in communities of color. So we have one open here in Roxbury, which is in Boston, and then we'll be opening up one in Springfield, Massachusetts as well. So there'll be these physical spaces where folks can meet the Revex team, and the teammates there will allow people to access banking products, banking services. They'll help build that connection to a bank, because we know that people sometimes have problems with credit. They may not be able to access credit or be able to get a loan because they just don't have that relationship. And we saw that when the PPP funds came out, a lot of small businesses and micro businesses just didn't have that relationship with a bank, and they didn't know what to do. And, fortunately, through Revex Labs, we were able to leverage our team in order to just, help people understand what they need to do in order to access the PPP loans, and then just, be able to get a loan as well.
So when I go to the website, by the way, I don't instantly get the story of what's being done there. So the web page itself doesn't immediately say, "Hey, I'm a small business owner. I should be coming to you." So my guess is that there's a bit of work to market this to people, but more so, there's a trust factor here. The underbanked are underbanked for a very important reason. They're used to looking at the bank as the bad guy. And that's a big step. So bringing you in serves two purposes. One is that you can approach this at a community angle and get people to understand a little bit better what the offer is. But you also get to handhold a little bit beyond what sales pitches can do and make people understand what's going to go on in there. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience is like, talking to a business owner who maybe hasn't had the opportunity to be funded and treated like a business of value?
Sure. So part of what we also do is help people bank with dignity. And I actually oversee the bankers who work with the small businesses and with the entrepreneurs. So I don't have that direct one-on-one contact as much as my team does. But their role is not just be based at a Revex lab. It actually is meant for them to go out and about into the neighborhoods, into the communities, to meet people where they live, where they work, at a cafe, if that's even more convenient, and help them access the products and services that way. And we have seen that people do feel that sense of belonging, that sense of connection, that sense of, this is a possibility beyond what I've experienced before. And, we are also able to connect with nonprofits in the area as well. So we're connecting entrepreneurs to nonprofits. We're supporting local nonprofits in terms of building their capacity and building their business savvy as well. So people do feel a sense of ease, especially this year, where there's been so much going on. There's been so much turmoil, both in the financial markets, socially, politically, just, pretty much anything that could have turmoil. It's happened this year. And so we're just seeing a lot of people feeling that sense of reassurance that we're able to bring into their financial lives and into their personal lives.
What got you started down this path, Derek? Like, when did you realize that there was a need for this?
For Revex Labs or for just building community in general?
For labs.
Well, so the labs are not my initiative. They were actually started by our former executive vice president. So she was brought on in order to, again, help bank the underbanked and bridge the racial wealth gap. So this was something that she brought on and she started just over a year ago. And she's someone I've known for several years. I've known her for maybe like 5 or 7 years or so. And as she was building these out, she asked me if I would be interested because of my background in community engagement and community building. It sounded like a great venture and a great project. And so I was more than happy to join.
So what in you though drew you to the project? Because I get offered a lot of projects and some of them just don't really like ring my bell. So why this one for you?
It really was that mission around taking this industry, this banking industry, which has a terrible history in terms of, supporting community or actually, working against community through redlining, through, denial of loans, through predatory loans, through all these other things, and really flipping that on its head. Really using the banking industry itself to support people, to support small businesses, to support communities that just haven't been allowed access or that have been intentionally denied access, and really using the levers of banking to open that up and make it much more accessible to people.
This is a big turn for you. You were working on the side of the arts and culture, and a lot of what you're still pretty passionate about is that we're at this massive inflection point. Thanks, unfortunately, to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all kinds of names of people that we all know now, where this massive protest happened in a different way this year, where people are paying attention in a way that they hadn't seemed to be before, including companies, even though they're doing a whole lot of woke washing. You've done this from the arts side. You're now doing it from the big business side. 2 questions in one. That's got to be tricky for you to navigate, to explain that you're on the business side of things right now, because again, there's that perceived negativity. And then second, how is it feeding your soul? Or do you still get to do some arts projects or something like that? Something where you're on that side of the fence to kind of balance this in your checkbook, so to speak?
Great questions. So I haven't done as much art. So I used to be a photographer in a previous life, for those who don't know me. And I was an arts administrator for about 7 years as well, prior to working at the bank. So I started in the arts, then I went to higher ed. Now I'm in the for-profit world. But, there's a connecting thread through all of that, which is community engagement. The engagement of community, whether it is artists and art lovers, whether it's the higher ed world and, people working in communities adjacent to universities, or, working with entrepreneurs and small business owners. The connecting thread is supporting people, supporting their growth, supporting their development. It's not about me and, so much about what feeds me, but what feeds me is seeing other people do well, seeing other people, find ways in which they can find new pathways and gain access. And I think that's what really drives me, is the opportunity to give other people the levers of access and the accessibility to services and products that I've been fortunate to have in my life. And I want to make sure that other people have that as well. Not just on a one-on-one basis, but also on a community level. Because what kind of got me started in this whole thing was back in about 2007, 2008, when I was working at a travel company. So I would work with this travel company that was sending school kids from the US all over the world. And they would send them for, 10 days to 3 weeks at a time. And then I would come home and pass, the bodega, the small business, the local theater that didn't even have a website, that, didn't have social media. And, just that stark difference from one to the other every day. I was like, maybe there's other stuff I can do, because the folks that I'm working with now, that I work for now, the travel company or through the travel company, have access. The folks that I'm seeing when I come home, I chat with them, I talk with them, I buy stuff from them. They have far less access. So I thought about, what could I do in order to change that? And so one of my first entrepreneurial ventures was to sort of hire myself out as a web designer and a graphic designer, sort of on the freelance side. And that was around the time that a board member from the nonprofit that I ended up working for approached me and said, hey, this nonprofit needs some help. Would you like to, apply for the job? And I'm like, no, I don't really want to do sales. And she's like, well, it's not quite sales, just interview, just check it out. And so I interviewed, and the conversation went well. And then I was brought into the arts world that way. So, it was kind of an organic approach, but now I'm looking at it much more as a career path in a sense.
Is this the first time in your career that you've been able to align that so closely?
Yes, I think so. So I would say that my career path for the most part has been very non-linear. So when I finished college, my first job was working as an English teacher in Japan. And then
one does.
Right. So I was there for 5 years. And after that, I went to grad school in London. And then I came back and I worked for the state. So the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, working in the Department of Economic Development. So, I've kind of like flipped a lot of things around. And that was the point at which I think things began to sort of click and align for me.
Derek, I just granted you $1 million. Stop any of your day jobs. You don't have to be a bank flunky anymore. You're your own man. What are you going to do with that money, and how are you going to enrich the community that you serve right now?
I would probably buy property. I would buy property in my community, and I would rehabilitate it. Well, we're in Boston, so $1 million does not get me very far. So
right.
That's true.
When I make it 5 or so,
when you give me $10 million, okay. Well, we can go with 5. We'll cut it. We'll split the difference. When we go with $5 million, I'd be able to buy more property in the community, rehabilitate it, and I would make a significant amount of it affordable to people who can't afford Boston rents. I mean, they're high. They're significantly higher than most other parts of the country. But also make sure that small businesses and local entrepreneurs and local artists also had the opportunity to have a space where they could be for a while, because I think that's part of the other problem. Artists and small businesses do have access to space, but the problem is that either the rents are too high or people are snapping them up, and then, they're being pushed out to other locations. So the community right now is not stable. It's a little bit more stable now because no one's doing much during COVID time. But prior to COVID, the instability was it seemed like it was ramping up, and it was almost running amok. So, I'd really try to stabilize the community that way and just build it pretty much from the ground up.
Needs it. It's interesting. Who would have ever bet that places like around South Bay would suddenly gentrify? Like, Roxbury rent would be insane. I mean, when I showed up from Maine in the 80s, and, you could buy like 8 houses in Roxbury. Now you can't even afford a 2-bedroom there. So right. It's a strange time, but I loved hearing the answer to the question about the money. We're going to grab Dan. We're going to make it a little bit of a panel. We're going to ask a couple questions, and we're going to see a little bit how this works. One thread that I was thinking about the whole time is that you're both in this moment where you get to use your creativity and you get to use your artistry while still trying to serve a business. How's that been for you? I'll start with Dan.
It's been, here in New York City, it's been tough. We were shut down for a long time, and it afforded me and my colleague an opportunity to investigate the Merchants House Museum while nobody was in there. The Merchants House Museum closed down for months. So we were able to set up some remote cameras in there and a lot of sensors and really some high-tech recording equipment in that place, and did a different type of investigation, remote investigations. And we're monitoring cameras from our apartments and listening to recordings from our apartments. So that that affected us. If there's no silver lining in this, but it made us get a little bit more creative and try a different hand at investigating.
I love that you asked that question, Chris, because my head went right to haunted banks.
Haunted banks.
But Derek, how's it been for you? So things have definitely changed for everybody. Your answer to Chris's question.
Sure. Yes, things have definitely changed. And it's just made me reflect again upon what I've had access to and what I can do to sort of help fuel some of the change that I think is necessary. So where I'm thinking specifically is just around the summertime when there were, the incidences with Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, just all those instances there. And then you saw all these companies come out with these statements saying, we support the movement for Black lives, we support this, we support that, but there were no tangible goals around that. And so what I've been thinking about, and, I've had a couple of opportunities through the boards that I'm on, is challenging institutions, challenging organizations, challenging companies to think about, well, this is great. I'm glad to see that you support these things. You're supporting social justice, but what's next? What are you tangibly going to do? How are you going to measure it? How are you going to be more accountable for your participation in the overall system and changing the things that you say you want to change? So it's just making me think more about how I can be more involved. And so I've begun thinking about and begun launching a venture around community engagement and supporting companies that say that they want to be more socially active and supportive of community engagement, but don't know how.
That's a generous interpretation, that they don't know how. Some think that just putting up the black box that one day was enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're right. Black social media with the white text and the logo at the bottom because that did it. What's one thing that's interesting too, though, is that you're both very practical. For being creative and artists, every article I read about Dan is, he's a guy that would sooner have pizza and beer with you than to talk about, as you pointed out, paranormal research is way more than ghosts. You had that guy that, said he might be a wolf man and wanted you to stay with him.
Was he a wolf man?
I don't know.
He said, get away from me.
I didn't go near him.
So I'm just curious how that works. And I'll start with Derek. That bridge, just what Kerry said, that bridge of trying to get someone from wanting to do better, but not really taking an action in any business, in any life. If you were over coffee with a friend right now, Hoseline Maine comes to you and says, I need something, I need to get into action. What do you help them with? What do you tell them?
I start with asking questions. So people say, yeah, I need help with this big goal, but how do we break that down into smaller pieces? Where are you at now? And where do you want to be? And then, how do we either build you up to move forward to that goal, or how do we start at the bigger goal and break it down into smaller pieces that you can eventually achieve? So for me, it would start with a lot of questioning just to understand. But then also, if you're approaching me, my assumption is that it's not just to answer some questions, but also you probably want me to be involved somehow. So I would also ask, well, how do you want me to be involved? Do you want me to take action? Do you want me to talk to people? Should I introduce you to my network? What else can I do to be supportive so that this works and it works for everybody and it works for your greater goal?
Dan, your buddy at the gym has just gone into the hole with well over 700 on the bar, padded up. He has done it. He's gone in the hole. He's come back out. And then he tells you as he's trying to recover his breathing, he says, my kid thinks they want to be a paranormal investigator. Can you maybe give him some thoughts about this? What do you say?
I would tell him to advise his kid to read as many books as he can and get in touch with the right people. There's a lot of really, really smart people out there, real scientists that are involved in this, that are very generous with their time. And I would tell him not to expect to make any money, unfortunately.
This is not
No.
the buy the Range Rover job.
Who are the right
you don't get rich
people?
doing this, boy.
So you mentioned getting in touch with the right people. Are there like organizations that certify paranormal investigators? Like, what do you do to stand out?
That's a great question too, and there is none. There are definitely organizations that'll go out there and say, if you pay the money. I've had online colleges offer me PhDs just to say that I studied there. So a lot of that is BS. And if somebody tells you they're a certified paranormal investigator, they're lying to you. There's no such thing. The best people in the field, the Lloyd Auerbachs, Dean Radins, Edwin C. May, they're all phenomenal paranormal investigators. The top dogs. They're not certified, and so that's silly, that kind of stuff. But yes, there are organizations. There's the Rhine Research Institute in North Carolina, was part of Duke University for years and years and years, and the Windbridge Institute, the Forever Family Foundation. These are really, really smart people doing amazing research and really getting phenomenal results and collecting amazing data and their research needs to be known. It needs to be more popular.
That sparks a question. Derek, you heard Dan just kind of suddenly list things off like baseball card collectors. Like he was in his moment where he had a lot of stats and stuff. Who's on the Willie Mays list of people we need to go after for community people that you look up to? Who's someone you follow on, I don't know, Twitter or somewhere that you're like, this person's the kind of community person I hope someday that people say I'm like this one?
That is a great question.
I thought so.
Well, I follow quite a few people on Twitter and on LinkedIn. I'm trying to, now that you've
I put you on the
asked that
spot.
question.
I know.
Yeah, I'm put on the spot, so I don't want to miss anyone, but I do want to name some people.
It's not the Oscars. No one's going to fit
Right.
that if you leave.
Right. I mean, one person I do look up to is Malia Lazu. So she's someone who I really believe does a great job in terms of engaging community and really getting people involved and connecting people to different ideas and resources in ways that I haven't really seen done much around Boston. I would also throw out there Erin Anderson. So she was someone who started in Montana, came to Boston. Now she's back in Montana. And she connects community through yoga and meditation and being mindful. So, just a different approach there. I would also throw out Greg Valentino Ball. So he does it through music and through arts. So, there's people that I like to work with. I've worked with all three of those folks. There are also people that I consider to be good friends, but also people who are embedded in community in very, very different ways that I would like to see more people make use of their time and their talents.
We have two things left to do on the Backpack Show today, and we can get out. Person of the day, sponsored by pub-site.com. We always give one person of the day. I'm going to give it to my lovely ex-wife, Katrina.
I think that's wonderful.
Finding the connecting
She's
thread
earned it.
Such a huge part of what she wants to be a guest any day now.
Anytime.
But I love this comment. Finding the connecting thread is such a huge part of why something will thrive.
Oh, it's so true.
And I think it's true. I think it's a good answer. So that's that. We did that. Now we have one last question. What goes in your backpack? Probably not who's been thinking Ghostbusters the entire episode and like Egon's tools and stuff like that. Probably not that. But the question is, what goes in your backpack? The world is shifting. Nothing's solid. There's shifting sands beneath their feet. We only have to be able to carry a little bit of stuff because it's a backpack. What physical or metaphorical thing goes in our backpack to make the world better for us for the next 5 years? Dan Sturges.
You know what? I'm gonna put some compassion and a lot of empathy in my backpack and walk around with that because it's quick. It's easy to judge people real quick, and I'm working hard not to do that. So and I think we could use a little compassion, a little empathy these days. So I'm gonna put a whole lot of that in my backpack.
I want that thing Peter Venkman had in Ghostbusters where he goes into Dana Barrett's apartment and she's like, "Are you using that thing correctly?" He's like, "I think so." I want that one.
It's the truth.
Eric, what goes in your backpack?
Two things I would say. One would be perspective. So sort of being centered and understanding where you fit into things, but also not feeling like you have to move with the winds of change or the tides of change or whatever that metaphor is. You can also see what's going on, not have to react all of a sudden and sort of be thoughtful. And the other one I would add would be music. Just whatever soothes you or motivates you or energizes you. That's what I always have with me as well.
But what's your music? What are you putting in?
So I listen to a lot of YouTube, and so there are these neo soul channels, and I would listen to a lot of neo soul. Just Erica Badu, Maxwell, just that whole crowd just calms me down and also keeps me going. Jill Scott, all of those folks.
Is Thundercat considered neo soul? Because he's kind of funk, right? Or am I in the wrong channel if I'm listening to somebody like a Thundercat?
I don't know that I've heard Thundercat. I'll have to look him up now.
You're looking after.
No, but he might come across Thundercats, which is the 80s cartoon.
Yeah, not the 80s.
Which is where
Completely
my mind
different.
went originally.
Yes, completely
Yeah.
different thing.
This guy's a dreamy bass player, and he's just got a great style, and he works with a really interesting mix of people. He makes Ariana
Collaboration.
Grande sound interesting.
Haunted banks. I'm just saying.
Haunted Banks.
You know there are some.
Absolutely.
Do it.
You
Let's do it.
I've never seen anything particularly paranormal, but my grandmother did. But the problem is it was in the weirdest place. There's this lobster pound right down on the ocean. It's called Young's Lobster Pound in Belfast, Maine, and